It's lights out and away we go. Lando Norris then tries to come across and cut off Max Verstappen. Oscar Piastri tries to dive in the inside. Lando Norris leads the British Grand Prix from Max Verstappen and Oscar Piastri. You can hear the roars.
Hello F1 fans, welcome to Formula Pun Racer. Today is July 15th, 2023. You're probably wondering, what's with the change in scenery? Well, the usual place I work in was just too hot and humid to work in today despite having an AC. It just wasn't cool enough, so I decided to retreat someplace a little cooler. My little man cave here in the basement, where, with this Logitech G29.3, I can race project cars too. And what car will I be practicing in? Listen carefully, the engine might sound familiar, even if the sound is a little faint. Just hold on, let me get it revving. I'm sorry if you can't hear it at all, folks, but I just want to make sure you can hear me more than the car. And to keep you from being distracted, I'm driving an Aston Martin DBR1 on the racetrack where the latest F1 round took place recently, Silverstone, England. And this is where things were quite interesting, because despite the fact that the points leader, Max Verstappen of Red Bull, the Netherlands, had taken the pole position again, we were in for a special treat when the lights went out, because Lando Norris of England, driving for McLaren, started second. And just when you think Red Bull was instantly going to pull away, we were wrong. In fact, we were in for a special treat, because as you saw in the intro there, the orange McLaren, driven by Lando Norris, actually got by Max Verstappen on the very first lap. And the crowds were roaring with delight to see a Brit in the lead on home soil. The Woking team was doing quite well. That McLaren would end up being called a Quicklaren. Jolly good, governors and governesses, to see Lando Norris's McLaren leading on home soil. Unfortunately, by lap 4, thanks to Max Verstappen's Red Bull's DRS system, which is a drag reduction system that opens up the rear wing to reduce the amount of air resistance to make the car go faster, he would eventually retake the lead over from Lando Norris and lead every lap.
Oh, come on!
Oh, yeah.
What?
Fastest lap and, of course, maintain his dominant ways in F1, aka Max wins again. There were 3 retirements in the race. The first on lap 9 was Esteban Ocon in his Alpine Renault when his blue car's hydraulic system failed with a leak. Sacre bleu indeed. Lap 31, it was Haas driver, the Danish butter cookie we know as Kevin Magnussen. His car was out on the hangar straight when the rear of his car went up in a puff of flame. So much for the Danish butter cookie going out in a blaze of glory. Sorry, Kevin. With Magnussen's Ferrari-powered Haas stopped on the track, this brought out the safety car and the only yellow flag of the race. But that didn't matter to the top 7 drivers in the race at that point, like starting with Max Verstappen, who, of course, as I just said, went on to win the race. His first British Grand Prix win and second win in Silverstone. No doubt increasing his points lead in the Drivers' and Manufacturers' Championship. Lando Norris's McLaren finished second. Lewis Hamilton's Mercedes finished third. This means this is the first time since 2000 that 2 British drivers have stood on the podium for the British Grand Prix. What a sense of pride that must be. Not so much pride, though, for the local team, Aston Martin, whose headquarters is across the street from the Silverstone circuit. And it all began with the 3rd retirement of the race, when Lance Stroll went wheel to wheel with Pierre Gasly's Alpine Renault in one of the corners. They touched wheels, and Gasly was out with a right front or right rear broken suspension. Lance continued on to finish 11th, but incurred a 5-second penalty, demoting him back to 14th. Tough luck for you, Lance, eh? Lance's Spanish teammate Fernando Alonso finished 7th ahead of Alexander Albon's Williams. It's just unfortunate that the Aston Martin team couldn't deliver better results on home soil, especially with their base just across the street from the track. To make it matters worse, all the McLarens, the Mercedes, and the Red Bull entries finish ahead of them, taking the top 6 spots. Pretty depressing. But the engineers of the Aston Martin AMR22, a car that Lance and Fernando drives, they say it hasn't been doing very well on fast corner tracks like Silverstone, but they have been doing relatively well on medium and slow corner tracks like Monaco. So theoretically, they are expected to do much better in the next round in Hungary. But to alleviate the disappointment we have got for the depression it is that Aston Martin let us down, this is all I can say in tune to the hopes that Aston Martin can do better in the future. Oh, a can full of Pepsi makes my depression go down. My depression go down. Depression go down. Yes, a can full of Pepsi makes my depression go down in the most delightful way. Yep, a delicious can of Pepsi to sugarcoat the bitter taste of disappointment and defeat for Aston Martin and Silverstone. But if it makes Aston Martin feel any better, a bigger development has occurred recently at Scuderia Alpha Tauri. Nyck De Vries, the Dutchman who isn't flying a 16th as high as Max Verstappen in results, has shown pretty dismal results in practically every race he's done for the team so far this year, and scoring 0 points just like Logan Sargent. But unfortunately, with Nyck De Vries finishing 17th in the British Grand Prix, it appears to be the last straw for Alpha Tauri, and unfortunately, this is the outcome for the young Dutchman.
That's it! You're fired! Do you hear me?
Jesus Christ, Edward James, almost you have to yell at me. But there you have it, folks. Nyck De Vries has been sacked by Alpha Tauri. God knows what's going to happen to him now. If he find a seat in racing somewhere else, or will he ever find his way back in F1? God only knows. So with that said, who's going to replace him in the Alpha Tauri seat? It turns out you can throw a shrimp and steak on the bar because Red Bull reserve driver Daniel Ricciardo of Australia is back in F1. He will be replacing Nyck De Vries in Alpha Tauri alongside Yuki Tsunoda. For those wondering, that man you saw there is Broadway actor Cyril Ritchard. I use him because, just like Oscar Piastri and Daniel Ricciardo, he too is from Australia. So that means for all F1 fans from that land down under, you can add an extra shrimp and steak on the Barbie to celebrate Ricciardo's return to the F1 seat.
Yes!
As for the locals at Silverstone, such as MJ Knight, Jamie the Comic, and Calvin Dyson, who are hoping better results from Aston Martin, Norris, Russell, and Hamilton and didn't get it in Silverstone, I'm sorry to hear that, but all isn't lost for Britain. Because while F1 may have been a wash for anything British on home soil, today in Formula E, it was quite the opposite. It was Mitch Evans of New Zealand driving for the British cat Jaguar, which took victory today in the Rome E-Prix. Mamma mia! The cat wins again in Formula E. How shocking. On top of that, let's see what my sister's cat Meatball has to say about her cousin coming out on top once again. Not much comment, huh, Meatball? Still, a victory for Jaguar in Formula E or any form of car racing is always something that the cat loves to drag in. The next F1 round is in Hungary, July 23, the home of Eva Gabor and her sisters Magda and Jaja and the Rubik's Cube. No doubt, setting up these F1 cars on a tight and twisty circuit like the Hungaroring will be like solving a Rubik's Cube. Can Max Verstappen win another race and at the same time expand his points lead? Or can Fernando Alonso actually break through with Aston Martin and win his 33rd career victory? Or will someone else win? God only knows. But at the same time, it would be fitting because Fernando Alonso took his first F1 victory at the Hungaroring 20 years ago. Who would have thought? 4 other drivers have won their first career victory at that track as well. In 1993, it was Damon Hill. 2006, it was Jenson Button. 2008, it was Heikki Kovalainen. And then, just in 2021, Esteban Ocon of France. Sacre bleu, who would have thought? But it's an amazing fact to know about how the Hungaroring has dished out first career victories for some drivers. Well, let's see what happens. Well, thanks for watching my review on the British Grand Prix. If you like, please subscribe to Formula Pun Racer, and here's hoping the heat dies down soon so I can go back to my normal setting, because I tell you, it's a roaster, even at this time of year in PA, and I sure hope that Lance Stroll can clean up his act as well. But enough said. See you in the next video, everyone. I'm Aaron Cylinder, firing on all cylinders.